do the Conservatives have a problem with Muslims, a problem with their communication strategy, or both?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? Does the Conservative Party have a problem with Muslims, their communication strategy, or both? Yasmin.
I think it's deeper than all of that. I think I wrote my column in our newspaper about this, that I'm sorry to say this, and if it offends people, I apologise in advance, but the Conservative Party has a racist flora in its guts. If you look at the history of the Tory party, right the way through, post-war history, you can see that, which doesn't mean I think all Conservatives are racist, but this is a recurring thing, a recurring kind of, if you like, germ that comes up over and over again. Today it's Muslims. Once upon a time it was black people. Before that it was all of us. So it isn't about communications.
Have you met our Prime Minister?
Hang on, Catherine. You'll get your chance in a minute.
Yeah, but...
No. The way this programme works is that you all have a turn and then we have a discussion. Please respect those rules, Yasmin.
So we start with... I'll do a brief summary. Winston Churchill wanted his country to stay white. Enoch Powell, Peter Griffiths in 1964, who won an election, which is in a Labour seat, by using, he didn't invent it, but a shocking slogan: if you want an N-word for a neighbour, vote Labour. You had Norman Tebbit. You've had...
So what did Norman Tebbit say?
The cricket test. And I remember on the Today programme, he said, I could never be British, even though I had a British passport. So there's a history. And now, at the moment, it's Muslims. But it's just an incarnation, in my view. And there are good Tories who are not racist. And I would put people like David Cameron there. But certainly Rishi Sunak thinks he can use this. And that's even more shocking.
Catherine.
I don't even know where to start. The entirety of the basis of that is, frankly, pretty offensive. The idea that the Tory party would tolerate racism within its ranks, the idea that I personally would have given up a career in business to join the Conservative Party. I didn't join until 36, so 2013. We have got one of the most diverse front benches in history, and we sit atop one of the most racially integrated countries in the world. You know, our trade secretary says, you know, the United Kingdom is the best place in the world to be black, and she's right. And actually, that's kind of it's quite divisive to the people that give or lend the Conservative Party their vote. The idea that they must be motivated by some malign content in the background. It's for the birds. I'm sorry that the experiences that you've had in your life lead you to bring you to those views. I can hear that they're very strongly held.
Yasmin, steady on. We will come back. But I want an answer to the question, Catherine. Does the Conservative Party have a problem with Muslims, their communication strategy, or both?
Neither.
So you think the last couple of days have been a great example of a brilliant communication strategy?
I think the last couple of days have been a great example of someone who I call a friend. I'm very conflicted about this, and making a complete and total horlicks of what he actually wanted to say and using the wrong words in the wrong way. And he has had the whip taken off him because he's used the wrong words in the wrong way.
And do you consider those words to be Islamophobic?
What does that mean?
Oh, you see, this is what we spent most of the last hour discussing. Do you want me to read you the Oxford Dictionary definition?
Yeah, go on.
Because I've got it here. But, I mean, surely it's something like racism. We know it when we see it. We don't need a dictionary definition.
So the anti-Muslim hatred is completely wrong. It's totally wrong. We've got a definition of anti-Semitism that's been agreed with the ECHR and has been broadly socialised, and people have signed up to it. Labour have eventually signed up to it. The Islamophobia has got some stuff around the edges, and I think it's important that when we take a strong stand against racism, which I do, that we're all together and very clear about it.
Well, the Oxford Dictionary definition is dislike of or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, especially as a political force.
Well, I can tell you that I'm no racist. And I have been friends with Lee since we joined the party together. And I have never had one hint of racism out of him. I think it's entirely possible that the stupid so-and-so has got himself into this absolute horlicks because it's never occurred to him in a million years that it could have been interpreted as racist.
But
his words are wrong. I'm not defending his words.
If you accuse the Muslim mayor of London of being essentially in bed with his Muslim extremist mates, I mean, how can you interpret that in any other way apart from being Islamophobic?
Because the second half of the sentence was they're in control of Keir Starmer. He's just being a wally.
I'm sorry, I have to come in. He's not the only one. Robert Jenrick has said similar things in the last week that, Islamists are marching on the street. Suella has said that. For you to sit there and say it's about me or about you is to miss the point.
But Yasmin, there is a difference between Islam and Islamism, isn't there?
Yes.
And if we're talking, I think it's a perfectly legitimate thing to debate as Islamist extremism. And if we're getting to the point where we can't even talk about that, we are in a big problem.
Suella Braverman and Jenrick both said the streets are full of Islamists and terrorists. Show me them. Show me them.
I think some people are really worried about some of the protests that have been going on. I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that. On Wednesday, I walked into New Palace Yard out of the back of the House of Commons and I looked at what is accepted to be an anti-Semitic slogan broadcast on Big Ben. During the day, a colleague of mine was reduced to tears. A good person was reduced to tears in the estate of the House of Commons because of the things that were said to them. And I felt so uncomfortable for my safety that I changed my route. Now, I'm not going to change my vote. You get into politics to stand up for what you believe in, and if anyone thinks they can sway me, bring it on. But there are people.
Let's hear from the other two panellists. Samuel, let's come to you. Let's go back to the original question. Does the Conservative Party have a problem with Muslims, their communication strategy, or both? Now, you resigned as Boris Johnson's race advisor, I assume for vaguely similar reasons that we're talking about tonight.
No, that is not why. However, when I was in Downing Street, there were two things that were happening that I suppose might give better context to this very interesting conversation. One was Swaran Singh was in the process of finalising his review into Islamophobia within the Conservative Party, and two, I was tasked with trying to create an action plan for us to find ways to better engage as a party and as a government with the Muslim population. 4 million Muslims, probably about 1 million or so more who are culturally connected to the Islamic faith but might not identify as Muslim. And the reality is, why I was tasked to do that and why we had this independent review was because we do have challenges with how we engage with the Muslim population. Yes, there is Islamic extremism, which is alongside far-right extremism, two big challenges for us as a nation to try and tackle. But we often find ourselves in moments as a party where we maybe conflate the two, the idea of being Muslim or being culturally Muslim or whatever you want to call it, and aligning yourself with extremism. The lines are very blurry, and just like the Labour Party has had significant challenges with anti-Semitism, I think it is very important, like Keir Starmer has done in the Labour Party, to first and foremost, confront the fact that you have challenges, and I think people will respect you more if you are taking steps towards trying to do better. And frankly, if you look at the trajectory for the population over the next 10 to 15 years, it will be virtually impossible for the Conservative Party to command a majority in the House of Commons without building bridges with the Muslim population.
Which is... David Cameron, I think, was quite successful at doing that. He appointed Sayeeda Vazi, a Muslim woman, as chairman of the Conservative Party. And, she's obviously been quite vocal about what's been happening over the last couple of days. So you've got the Labour Party tearing itself apart on anti-Semitism. You've got the Conservatives now doing the same thing on Islamophobia. What can the Liberal Democrats tear themselves apart with,
we will
Wendy?
always find something. But But if I could just come back to Catherine's defence of Lee Anderson, I think there's a couple of things.
I'm not defending his comments, I promise.
And I know you haven't said that, but I suppose my issue is on the first instance, perhaps maybe the Conservatives might be in a better position in relation to Islamophobia if they'd actually adopted a definition of it by the party. They have so far failed to do so. Now, no party's complaints process is perfect, but I think all parties should be adopting the definition of Islamophobia and the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, because I think it makes your complaints processes easier to deal with things of this nature. And then Catherine said that she thought that Lee Anderson had made a Horlicks of it. I'd probably describe it as a burach. But, that only lasts as a defence if you then apologise in the way that you've seen Paul Scully do in relation to the comments he made of no-go areas. Then you might be willing to accept that there's somebody has misspoken and they regret the remarks. But Lee Anderson has completely doubled down on what he said and refused to apologise, and that is what has put the government in the very difficult position.
But remember, it's not the first time. Zach Goldsmith, when he was standing against Sadiq Khan, did the same thing. He used anti-Muslim hatred for his campaign. So it's so important. That report was actually fantastic that was written, and it was totally ignored.
Yeah. And to go back to the original question, that suggests to me the fact that the government, the Conservatives, haven't responded appropriately, suggests that the caller's question might be valid.
Catherine, do you think he's on the way to reform? Because if he said he won't apologise until his last dying breath, or I think that was the phrase he used. Well, there's no way back for him in the Conservative Party, is there?
So, just to respond to Wendy, he said he's clumsy. I think that's the first step in kind of understanding what's gone on. He's trying, in a very cack-handed way, to raise a really legitimate concern of the people of his constituents.
He does it a lot, if that's the case.
He does.
Sorry, it's such a difficult word for many politicians, but in my experience, apologies are often the best way to move on from a situation. If he has admitted that he has been clumsy with his word, I just don't understand why an apology, therefore, is not then what would follow. That for me is I find peculiar.
And if he thinks he's got a future in the Conservative Party, that should be for more of a reason.
He said today that the Conservative Party's, you gave him a political home, and I think that's true. And I think he speaks for a lot of other people that feel like him.
Yasmin, you said at the beginning, or you seemed to suggest that you thought that this problem is endemic in the Conservative Party. But can you really say that? I mean, every political party has its fair share of idiots. And I've
criticised them all.
And people, you have indeed, but people who shout their mouths off and may then live to regret it. That doesn't mean to say that a political party is institutionally anti-Semitic or Islamophobic or institutionally racist, does it? You can't sort of tar everyone with the same brush.
Well, weren't people so happy when Keir Starmer was cleansing his party of anti-Semitism?
If only he had.
Yeah. Well, what he said he was doing, and he was being cheered on. He was being cheered on by journalists, by powerful people. But look what happens when we talk about racism in the Tory party, which is endemic. And I'm not, as I've made very clear, it doesn't mean every Tory is a racist, and it doesn't mean they're horrible to me, though some of them are. It is about a problem that that they need, and I completely accept that they've got this rainbow cabinet. But isn't it extraordinarily depressing that within that rainbow cabinet you have somebody like Suella, who speaks the way she does about Muslims, and nobody slaps her down?
Suella's a backbencher now. Suella's a backbencher.
She's still a Conservative.
I know, but you were talking about her in the cabinet, so I just.
And she's very powerful, and Rishi Sunak's scared of her.
Do you know what my frustration is?
He sacked her.
Yeah, but he's still scared of her.
Do you know what my frustration is? Is this is all distracted from something really important, which is defending the streets of London from protests that are costing, 25 million? It's cost the Met now. Just Stop Oil, lots of the Palestinian marches that are happening all the time. You talk to colleagues that have got the Westminster streets in their constituencies. It's ongoing disruption. I think there is a section of people that are worried. I mean, look at what happened in Stoke. Arrests have been made about the way the protest was occurring. I think we've got to try and find the right balance between the right to protest, the right not to disrupt people, and the right to make sure that people don't feel scared or threatened.